American boomers did one thing that none of their cohorts in the rest of the world did. They had kids. And we can talk all day about the millennials, and oh, can I? But they have one thing going for them that their equivalent around the world does not have going for them. Here, they exist. They're consuming today. They will be investing in a few years. They are the light at the end of the tunnel. Now let's talk about China. Here's the number one reason why you should not expect to be selling anything to China by the end of the decade, perhaps as early as next year. That demographic structure was already the world's fastest aging workforce as of January of 2000. This is already well past the point of terminal collapse. If they were going to fix this, they missed it by 30 years. We now know that this data is wrong. The Chinese have completed their 10-year census. They're starting to release the data in bits and pieces, not all at once because it's really bad. And they're now publicly admitting that they overcounted their population by in excess of 100 million people, all of whom were born since the one-child policy was adopted, so people 40 and under, and the vast majority of whom were women because of selective sex abortions applied in mass. The yellow bars probably don't exist. We don't have an economic theory that suggests that that leads to anything but full-scale societal collapse. It's just a question of whether it happens in 2029 or 2023. And when I look at the energy situation, and I look at the Ukraine war, and I look at the import disruptions and the flows and nationalism and Trump and Biden and all the rest, I gotta say, it's looking like it's gonna be sooner rather than later. When I speak to pork groups for the last few years, I've been telling you, if you bet the farm on sales to China, you will lose the farm. That doesn't mean there's no hope. It does mean you need to look elsewhere, like these four. Vietnam, Indonesia, Mexico, Colombia, these are your markets of the future. Vietnam is already the world's most pork-hungry country, eating more per person than any country in the world, including China. And there's over 120 million of them. Indonesia, 260 million people, nominally Muslim. They still like pork. Southeast Asia is like weirder than America. Mexico, likely to be the fastest growing economy in the world for the next 30 years. We have the healthiest demography in the advanced world. They have the healthiest demography in the advanced developing world. Courtesy of Donald Trump, we are linked together with NAFTA too. There are a lot of things about Trump I'm not a fan of. That was a stroke of genius. Thank God, it wasn't just negotiated, it's implemented, folks. It's done. And one word, carnitas. Nom, nom, nom. It's like, I gave a presentation to like poultry farmers of America a few years ago. Like, if you can get the Mexicans into Thanksgiving, I mean, what about Thanksgiving does not sound Mexican? Family gathering with food. I mean, come on. It's like, this is a low carry here, people. Because of the breakdown of global trade, North America broadly needs to double the size of its industrial plant in a very short period of time. Mexico is part of that solution. And Mexican farmland is awful. They need to import about a third of their food. Where do you think they get it from? And then finally, Colombia. The biggest problem that Mexico faces is that there's just not enough of them. There's only 130 million people in the country, and we're losing roughly a 1 billion person workforce out of China. Mexico can't do it all. They need some help. Colombia is the country most likely to help. So Colombia, top 5 list for fastest growing economies for the next 30 years. We already have an FTA with the Colombians. So this is your replacement plan. If you are not selling to these countries, find a way. They all like pork too, so that's that. Okay, final slide. This is CPI. The Americans and the Canadians, sibling countries, very similar. It tracks as you would expect. There have been 3 big phases for inflation since World War II. First, the original post-war build-out. This is when most of what we consider to be the advanced world fully industrialized. Remember, we didn't finish this process in the United States until the 60s. This is roads, this is power plants, this is asphalt, this is electrical grids. Industrial, demand-driven inflation. Then we had the baby boomers come of age. Houses, cars, kids. Consumer-driven demand inflation. And then we had this glorious period that we all think of as normal. The Soviet system collapsed, and an empire's worth of raw commodities was dumped on global markets, whether it was oil and gas, or wood, or wheat, or aluminum. Kept prices low for a generation. And the Chinese entered the global system in 1989, 1 billion workers, pushing down the cost of manufactured goods. We had 30 years of the lowest inflation ever recorded in human history. It is not normal, and it's ending. The Chinese labor is going away. The Russian commodities are going away. And we have to deal with a double spike now. Because while the baby boomers are retiring, the millennials are here, and they're in the prime of their consumption years. And we need to double the size of the industrial plant in the next 5 years. Every disinflationary trend we have benefited from in the last generation is flipping. And every inflationary trend we have dealt with in the last 2 generations is coming back on steroids. Your mid-case scenario should be inflation of 9 to 15% for at least the next 5 years.